Justin A.W. Blair here, writer, painter, occasional YouTuber, here today to review Star Trek Deep Space Nine Fallen Heroes, number 5 in the series by Dafydd Ab Hugh. Thought it was a fake name, looked it up, apparently it's not. It is Welsh for David, son of Hugh, and you can go back and look at the writer a little closer. I believe he wrote several Star Trek novels and some other science fiction based novels. Nothing original, I don't think, but based on television series. So, dear viewer, here we are. We're at number 5 in the series. It has been an odyssey. Now, some people say I'm a YouTube star, a bit of a sensation, a YouTube star, and I feel like a star today. In the cold vacuum of space, dying out here in the vacuum of space because I am struggling to continue on with these books. I am truly struggling. Life support is down. Just outside of Alpha Centauri. Life support is down. It's cold. I feel the end. The end is nigh. That's all I can say about this. It's really difficult for me to continue on. I may not. I feel like after 5 books, I've gotten a sense of the potential for these Deep Space Nine novels and the potential for them to be absolute dog shit. This one, Fallen Heroes, starts out pretty strong. The writing is strong. It is very action oriented, but the action is good. Really falls off. And the falling off point is really a matter of structure. So let's talk about the good and the bad. You can check out some of my other reviews for these books. These were published by Pocket Books in the early 90s. They are, novelizations, not of particular episodes, though the first book is a novelization of the episode Emissary, but taking the characters, the lore, from Deep Space Nine and writing stories about them. So let's take it good and the bad. It's always easier to talk about the bad. That is true. It is a problem, but the bad exists here. I want to talk a little bit about the good first. So the novel really starts off written better in many ways than some of the other novels. Just in terms of the fast-paced action, characterization, everything is really sound at first. Then we get one of the problems you see in many of these novels where the characterization gets really skewed, in particular with the use of dialogue. So we have passages where Chief O'Brien just sounds like a fucking leprechaun. I mean, he's making all of these it's really, I don't know why, but it's just really too much. He goes full Irish, I'll tell you that. And the problem with this is, yeah, of course you get a little bit of that in the show here and there, but it hits you with the Irish hard, and for some reason he's thinking about Irish melodies and this, that, and the other, and it's too much. It's essentially what happens is these writers take a bit of the personality from the characters from the television show, they try to expand it, and they try to expand it out a little too much. They go overboard with this. Still, the book has got my attention for the first 50 pages. The plot, somewhat interesting. We have Quark has got this artifact he's picked up from a dealer. Odo is sitting over his shoulder, curious about what's going on, wants to arrest him. This artifact that Quark buys causes all of the problems for the rest of the novel. What ends up happening is this artifact summons accidentally a race of aliens that are complete Terminator, like hedgehog alien Terminator people in helmets. And they do not use phasers or disruptors. They use gas-propelled projectiles. In other words, they use real guns. This is another problem with this book. I'm no stranger to violence. Not at all. I write it, I read it, I've watched it. I've grown up just like you, dear reader, dear watcher, dear viewer. Watched horror movies all my life, all kinds of stuff. I'm not that squeamish, though, as I've grown older. I've become a little more so, perhaps. However, We have a fundamental issue with this book, and that is that 75% of it is essentially just watching each character from Deep Space Nine get shot in the head. Yes, you heard me right. That is really what the bulk of this novel is. Essentially, these hedgehog space invaders come down to try to find this artifact. They're confused. They think that they're trying to retrieve one of their own fallen comrades or whatever. Somehow, they're these completely autistic, like one dimensional people that can barely, actually communicate with anyone. They just kill everything. But somehow they're also a spacefaring race with great technology. Regardless, this book is the most violent Star Trek book or film or television show out of all of the vast array of Star Trek media. This is the most violent thing I've ever actually read. I mean, it is really actually just kind of gratuitous in the violence. I mean, it is, and it's constant. It is each character getting violently killed, basically, by the space hedgehog people. You'd have to read it to actually fully get the sense. In fact, I'll just read you a passage from this to give you an idea. Keiko is no fan favorite. I'm not a big fan either. Do I want to read about this? You be the judge. Page 66. Oh God, I never thought it would end like this. She surged forward, covering the Inquisitor's helmet with her body as it tried to wrench her free. Keiko looked up, screamed. Her beloved Miles was just materializing in the schoolroom. Run, she screamed. Run, run, run. The Inquisitor managed to grab her hair, yank her head back. She saw the enormous barrel of his gun point directly at her face. Thunder reverberated in her head, echoing round and round before finally dying out. Keiko O'Brien had a few confusing glimpses of light, visions, pieces broken apart, the shattered remains of her brain unable to mentally process the stimulus sent by her visual cortex, still intact in her occipital lobe. Oh God. The light slowly faded, died completely. A voice spoke, possibly her own. Miles? So then, poor Miles O'Brien, who is the character that everyone likes to torture the most in Deep Space Nine, he materializes to see his wife just get shot in the head by the hedgehog alien. Miles O'Brien saw his wife's head jerk forward into the invader's gunshot. She fell backward across the desk behind her desk. As if in a horrible nightmare, he was paralyzed, unable to move, unable even to scream. Keiko was unambiguously dead. No human being could survive a wound like that. Keiko, his only beloved, his fair Colleen, the one who made life alive, would never again smile, laugh, love, or even spat with him. Again, and just to make this note, he starts calling her fair Colleen, and she spats with him. This is very Irish, and here we go. Same section. Now is not the time to die, he thought. Now's the time to live, to pay the buggers back for me own fair sweet Colleen. What? Are you fuck? Miles O'Brien just sees his wife shot in the head, and he turns into fucking the Lucky Charms guy. To pay the buggers back for me, my own fair sweet Colleen. I can't do the accent. To pay the buggers back for me own fair sweet Colleen. Okay, so that's page 66. This is where I'm starting to waver. I'm starting to think this isn't quite the right tone. This isn't great in terms of characterization. Let's go. I have another note here that just says page 82, a really bad example of writing. Let's go to that real quick. We have Kira, and I think it is we got Kira and Sisko, I think maybe. Here we are. This is Kira Nerys. Does this sound like Kira Nerys to you? Are you joking? I can't recable a phaser. I can't even install a stereo data clip reader. I kill people and break things. That's my job. Your job is to make phaser grenades. Yes, sir, said the chief, but if I'm to go round up civilians, then I can't make phaser grenades. So I'll have to show you. Oh, she said, feeling dumb. She thought for a moment, tugging at her ear. Sisko spoke quietly. Major, you're going to have to go with Chief O'Brien and evacuate the civilians yourself. Me? But who's going to knock away the bombs? You don't even want to know. He looked askance at her. Major, I was guarding home plate back in old Thomas Sowell Field before you were potty trained. Really, she said, her tone rather stiff. Go away, said the commander. That's an order. Round up as many as you can. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's just, okay, let's just move on. If you want to read this for that, you can. These novels aren't supposed to win Pulitzer Prizes. I don't think it would be a Pulitzer Prize. Pulitzer Prize for nonfiction. These novels are not supposed to win the Booker Awards. I don't know. That seems like an award for fiction. I don't know anything. I'm a fool. They're fast-paced novels. They're fun. They're based on a TV series. Okay, they're going to misstep. They're going to this or that. It's not a big deal. But this novel, beyond the absurd violence and always the weird, you don't even want to know. At one point, there's this joke about how Quark, had made, I guess, Kira Nerys in a hollow suite for his pleasure, and then he finds her corpse, and then he is able to identify the corpse, which is badly marred from violence because he saw her in the hollow suite. It's just kind of gross, to be honest with you. Beyond all that, beyond the Lucky Leprechaun O'Brien, beyond all of that, there's a fundamental problem with this book. And as a writer, I try to look at fundamental problems so I don't make fundamental problems if I can help it. There is a kind of idea of oh, dude, it was all just a dream. That's what I call these stories. Dude, it was all just a dream. In this book, we essentially have an alternative reality that plays out. Because, of course, they're not going to kill all the main characters, which in and of itself is a problem I've spoken about before. The story's pointless because you're watching all these people get destroyed and killed, and you know that's not real because it's a television show, and that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the books, so it's just, why am I watching this? Beyond even that, though related to that, when you create a story, and 75%, 80% of this is essentially Quark and Odo get put in this little time pocket, and they're looking. And by the way, this is written so poorly, it's confusing how this even works, this plot point. They're somehow 3 days in the future, but then this artifact that they have, which has caused the Hedgehog aliens, which are called like Beckir or something, to come down on them. It allows them to then go back in the past, kind of, but not really. And there's a bunch of techno babble about it has to be exactly like this and that and the other. By that time, I was tuned out anyway. But what ends up happening is essentially you have, dude, it was all just a dream. That's what I call these stories, because Quark and Odo are in an alternative reality. In this alternative reality, everyone's been violently killed. Now, as the reader, you're watching Quark and Odo go through the station, and then it's flashing back to each character what they were doing over those 3 days up to the point where they died, which is then shown to us as readers. That's the structure of this book. Opening scenario, 75-80% of the book is just basically flashbacks to characters from Quark and Odo's jumping off point in POV, watching those characters die, knowing that Quark and Odo are actually going to figure out a way to reset all this, which means the stakes are irrelevant. Now, there is a way to do the story of, dude, it was all just a dream. The Christmas Story, whatever it's called, Scrooge, right? We all know Scrooge, Charles Dickens. Can't remember the name of it. Doesn't matter right now. You know it. In a sense, that is all just a dream, right? He goes the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, Christmas future, whatever it is. I forget. It's not Christmas time, spring, all right? But while that story is structured the same way, reality at the beginning, then a long, essentially dream sequence, alternative reality, and then a conclusion and ending. The reason that works is because the main character learns something about himself, and there is a moral lesson taught to him to stop being so Scrooge-like, which he then fixes. His character changes at the end of the book. And then the viewer or the reader of that story can say, oh, okay, I understand that. Maybe I should change this, that, or the other and be less Scrooge-like. Regardless, you have a character change. The dream part of it, or the alternative reality time bubble here in this book, has a broader point because you're going through it, and then there is a collapsing of the beginning of the narrative and the end of the narrative back within itself, and you have a character change and a moral point of view. That doesn't occur here. There is no room for that. In essence, Quark accidentally destroys the station. It's not even really his fault. Odo doesn't even really blame him that much. Quark kind of blames himself, but it's not really his fault. They work to fix it. They do fix it, but it's not like Quark has some sort of great revelation at the end. Is like, oh, okay, now I shouldn't buy artifacts from traders or whatever. Do you see? It just doesn't work. So we have just this dream sequence in essence. It's really a nightmare sequence, and it leaves us with nothing in the end. Look, I actually had high expectations for this book within the first 40 pages or so. The writing was very good. Now it becomes spotty later on. That's a problem with all of these books. It seems like the editor couldn't really get a cohesive tone from a lot of these authors. And I understand, probably difficult with these authors trying to write two characters from a television series. I can understand that. I can forgive it, pass over it, and it's fine. But you get really, really jagged edges in a lot of these stories, and you see it. It's almost like you can see the author when he sets down to write a lot. So at the end of this book, you have, for some reason, I think it's, what character is it even? I don't even remember. It can't be Quark. It doesn't make any sense. It's not Odo. Oh, I think Sisko at the end, before he dies, is just for some reason thinking about popular Bible stories. It's like there's like 15 pages where he just references several different stories from the Old Testament. Moses, I think, and the sacrifice of Isaac with regard to his paralleling his sacrifice of Jake. Spoiler alert. And it's like, oh, okay, I see. This guy must have sat down to write this section and then thought, let me throw some references to Bible stories. It just doesn't really. It's just very uneven. The whole thing is uneven. Fallen Heroes, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, book number 5. I have to admit to you that this may be the last one I read for a while. I may power through a couple more. At this point, I'm thinking it is just not it's no good. I wish that it was. We'll see. I may continue on. I cannot recommend this book, really. If you are a diehard fan and you really want to just read all these, that's fine. I that's why I delved into them. I had recently watched Deep Space Nine, not for the first time, but for the first time in a very long time. And I wanted to get into it more. I wanted to read some of the books. That's why I picked these up. But to me, looking at the books, I was thinking, okay, maybe there is a way back into this world that doesn't require audiovisual media because all these people have aged. So, yeah, they could do a Deep Space Nine movie or whatever, but they're all 60, 70 years old. However, for the diehard fan, I will say they're short books. They do read rather quickly, especially when you become so frustrated, you just start to kind of skim over some of the text. But not recommended so far. We'll see. And that is all we're going to do. We're going to sign out. I'm going to beam me out. Beam me out of here. Get me out of these space hedgehogs.